Welcome into Cherry Picking. Yes, the official NHL regular season has started. We had 2 games overseas in Prague over the weekend, Friday and Saturday, with the Sharks and the Predators. But today, people can still place NHL betting futures, and there's still 30 teams to talk about. So we're going to get into some division previews, what bets I like for each division, and kind of just how these divisions, I think, are going to shape up heading into this season. So first division we're going to be talking about, the Atlantic Division. So you'll see the odds and win total on your screen here. Leafs are the favorites to win the Atlantic Division at plus 170. And then you're looking at Montreal Canadiens at plus 20,000 to win this division. To be honest, I think it's a little disrespectful. Maybe that's just because I'm a Habs fan, but this team definitely got a little bit better. But I think this speaks more to the competitive nature of this division. But there's 2 teams I really want to talk about. 2 of the teams. First, Detroit Red Wings, their point total at 84.5. I honestly think that's a little low. I really, really like what Steve Yzerman did in the offseason this year with David Perron, bringing on David Perron, and then you also have guys coming in like Andrew Kopp up front. He is probably going to start the season a little banged up, but still adding that center depth and then that veteran experience as well, I think will be huge. They finally got a goaltender after last year's abysmal performances from both Alex Nedeljkovic and Thomas Greiss. So I think with Ville Husso coming in, that'll be huge. And then Ben Sherratt too. This defense is getting a little bit older, a little bit more experience. I think this defensive score is going to really surprise a lot of people. So over 84.5 points, I really think that's something attainable for the Detroit Red Wings this year. And then the Ottawa Senators, 86.5. I think that's also a little low, but I'm not pulling the trigger on this team right away. I think this top 6 is probably one of the best in the division now. I think maybe top 5 in the league if you're looking at it. It's hard to really say that it's not with Tim Stützle, Drake Batherson, Brady Tkachuk, and now Alex DeBrincat and Claude Giroux coming in. This tandem has looked really, really good in preseason as well. So I think Ottawa is going to be a really good team in this division and maybe competing for a playoff spot this year, or maybe it's 1 year too early. And then one player prop that I'm really liking in this division is on the Habs actually, and it's Cole Caulfield, over 31.5 goals. This guy had an incredible season at the end when Martin St. Louis took over as the head coach for the Canadiens. If you're looking at his stats, he had 22 goals in 37 games. His shooting percentage was really, really high when St. Louis was there, meaning he was scoring a lot of his shots. But I still think over 32 goals is really attainable on a team that's going to have to score a lot of goals to compete in this division. All right, next division, we're going to be talking about the Central Division. Now, this division is very, very top-heavy. As you can see the odds here, obviously Colorado favored, the only odds-on favorite, meaning the only team that has minus odds to win the division starting the year. We saw the same thing last year as well, but the Wild are pretty near them right there at plus 330, but after that, it really drops off. You have the Preds at plus 1,000, Stars at plus 1,100, Blues at plus 1,200, the Jets, and then obviously the 2 bottom feeders in this division, who are the Coyotes and the Blackhawks, who both of these teams, I'll be honest, and I think everyone knows that at this point, are going to suck out loud. It's clear. The Blackhawks, I think, are really tanking at this point. You gave away Brandon Hagel at the end of last season, Kirby Dach, who really hasn't produced really at the effectiveness I think a lot of people have yet, but he's still really young. And then Alex DeBrincat, I mentioned obviously on the Ottawa Senators now. I think those are 3 huge losses. And then you just have 2 older guys really leading this team now in Taves and Patrick Kane. Max Domi came over. So did Jack Johnson, but still, I don't think this team is really built for success this year. And then their starting goaltenders, I mean, Peter Mrazek and Alex Stalock are not 2 guys you want to really be betting on. So to be honest, I'm actually looking at Chicago to finish with the worst regular season record this year. And that's something you can bet on at FanDuel. It's around 3-1 right now. It was a little higher a couple weeks ago, but I still think that it's a great value play. This Chicago team, it really seems like they're tanking for Connor Bedard. So you know, they're saying this year, and I think Chicago's anthem will be "Suck Hard for Bedard." So I'm going with that narrative. And then if you're looking at the top 2 teams in this division, for sure, Avalanche and the Wild, I do think the Minnesota Wild would be a better bet if you're looking to bet on a division winner. I wonder how this Avalanche team is going to look with Kadri and Burakovsky leaving, and then even Darcy Kemper. He was great last year. Now you bring in obviously Pavel Francouz, who was good in the playoffs, but Alexander Georgiev, who's been a backup his whole life. He's never really played a full game season. If he's fully splitting with Francouz, it might be a little tough for him, and I think they might show some rust at the beginning of this season. All right, now on to the Pacific Division. I honestly think this is one of the worst divisions in the NHL heading into this season, and I think you can kind of notice that by looking at the point totals here. The Sharks have the worst odds to win, but their point total is still at 75.5. I think that kind of goes to show that odds makers believe they can still win games within this division, and I agree they can definitely beat the Ducks, Kraken, even the Canucks or Kings maybe once or twice throughout the regular season. But I think the main focus here is obviously the Battle of Alberta, Flames and Oilers, very evenly matched if you're looking at what the odds makers are giving them, both 103.5 point totals. And then if you're looking at the odds, the Flames have a little bit of an upper hand at plus 190 compared to plus 230. But honestly, I really like the Oilers instead of the Flames here. I know the Flames brought in a bunch of new players, Mackenzie Weegar, Huberdeau, Nazem Kadri, and they did lose Matt Tkachuk and Johnny Gaudreau, but this is still a new group, and I don't really think they'll click right away. Still have question marks about Markstrom as well, as his playoff performance kind of showed. He wasn't very clutch in the playoffs. But the Oilers, on the other hand, I do really like what Jack Campbell adds to this roster. Also, there's not too many new faces within this team other than new guys that are coming up, like Dylan Holloway's looked great in the preseason, and I think this defense has another year in the offseason too to kind of shore up and build that chemistry much better. You know, guys with Darnell Nurse, even Evan Bouchard, these guys will just continue to develop and get better as they go through those young ages of their career. One other total I was looking at was the Canucks, but I have a couple question marks just because Ilya Mikheyev, one of the new guys they're bringing in, got hurt in preseason and is coming into the regular season, probably not on the roster. And then also Brock Besser will probably be out for a month and a half to start the season. So I really like what Bruce Boudreau has done. I think he reinvigorated this group, but I think it's just better to kind of stay away and wait and see and maybe try to get a live line on this Canucks team. But very hopeful for them heading into this season. And then lastly, Mason McTavish on the Ducks. Called or locked this season, 5-1. I know a lot of people might be thinking Matty Beniers, but I really like the situation McTavish is in. He played great at the World Juniors. We saw him take the Hamilton Bulldogs up to the Memorial Cup. They did lose in the finals, but his play throughout that and the OHL playoffs was incredible. And then I think he'll be able to find his way in the top 6 of this lineup, if not right at the start of the regular season, at some point soon. So at 5-1, I think you're getting the best odds you can right now. All right, last but not least, the Metropolitan Division, probably the most competitive division, toughest division to play in. You're looking at teams, you have the Hurricanes, Penguins, Rangers, Capitals, Islanders, Devils, and now even the Blue Jackets are starting to look pretty good, but the Flyers, definitely bottom feeders of this group. Have no faith in Torts and the Flyers this year. I don't think they'll be going anywhere, but I think there's only one clear decision in this division, and that's the Hurricanes to win this division. I have them winning the Stanley Cup. So at 2-1, I think it's really a no-brainer for me to take Carolina. They brought in Brent Burns. They did pretty much rob Max Pacioretty from the Vegas Golden Knights, considering they had no other option. He won't be playing for a couple of months, but still he'll be a great add in a couple of months to this offensive lineup that's already elite, I would say. You know, you have guys Aho, Svechnikov, Teuvo Teravainen, and now Seth Jarvis is really starting to come into his own as well. If you look at last season too, this offense was great. They had the third highest expected goals rate at 3.03, excuse me. And then Freddie Anderson actually had a great year last season. He did get hurt near the end and didn't play in the playoffs. But if you look at his goalie metrics, he was third, only behind Igor Shesterkin and Andrei Vasilevsky. He had the third best goal saved above expected rate, which is huge. Obviously, just winning Carolina games that they shouldn't be winning. And I honestly think the Penguins and Capitals are two teams that you could see a regression from this year. Crosby and Ovechkin have continued to disobey this whole thing of regressing at the age of 30 and up. But I think it'll start this year, especially with Washington. I don't have a ton of faith in this lineup. The main reason being, we saw how Vanacek and Samsonov struggled last year, mainly because of this defensive core. They're a great offensive unit, but they do allow a lot of high dangerous chances and allow a lot of shots on net. Now you have Darcy Kemper coming over from Colorado. And one thing to note, we saw Grubauer put up incredible numbers with Colorado when he was with the Avalanche. Then he got shipped off to Seattle in the expansion draft or after the expansion draft, and he put up really bad numbers. So it's tough to go from a team that scores a ton and has a really good defensive depth to going to a team. Obviously, Washington's better than Seattle, but I still think it'll be an adjustment for Kemper. So I'm down on the Capitals in this division and really high on Carolina to win this division and also even win the Stanley Cup this year.